I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com.
In Wheatfield Prison, we have significant challenges regarding drone incursions into our prison. We have significant finds and successes in detecting contraband, and there's some images here now if you'd like to have a look. See the way they make the human pyramid and they go up and reach for the article. Now that article is on fire that particular prisoner that they're grabbing. So then they bring it into a huddle then, and it's dispersed amongst them. And the colour, I suppose, the contraband that's coloured will be dished out amongst the prisoners. It's to search all the prisoners coming in, and if needs be, we can isolate prisoners and put them into close supervision cells or special cells if we think they have concealed contraband. We don't send our officers out to a situation like this for the obvious reason. You could be facing serious conflict there, weapons, this type of thing. So we have to determine what came into a yard before we decide on our operation. Chief, these particular incidents, as with all incidents, we check back on the CCTV, identifying the known assailants, the people who have received the contraband, and the people who are directing others to receive the contraband. And then we use the mechanisms at hand regarding Rule 62, transfers, and removing prisoners from structured activity.
And ask that, what are we doing? Or we get questions in, from politicians, or we get questions in from everybody outside agencies, journalists, what are we doing in terms of the drug threat and the drone threat in particular that we're facing at the moment. I have to say that through our efforts and through our drug strategy, there's three pillars to our strategy. It's inform and educate, detect and reduce, and treat and support. We are winning in all of those areas. We have come from an area where there's such investments and such a focus in terms of what we need to do to win this battle against drugs and against I suppose criminality in the prisons that emanates from that.
So we're just seeing a video there of a group of prisoners in Wheatfield Prison, one of Ireland's biggest prisons, making a human pyramid to try and get drugs that have been captured in netting. It's a huge problem, isn't it? And it's a problem that the Irish Prison Service are determined to address.
Yeah, well, the particular video, Niall, it showed pretty chaotic scenes as a package that was delivered by a drone was caught on netting and eventually dropped down, and you could see the human pyramid ended, and there was I don't know, would there be up to 20 youngsters hovering around trying to get these drugs. Yeah. But unfortunately, these kind of scenes in that particular prison in Wheatfield, but also in many other prisons across the country, is very common. Like, drones being used to deliver contraband, and it's not just drugs, it can be weapons as well, of course. And mobile phones. As well. It's a huge issue. In Wheatfield itself, when we went on a visit there last Wednesday it was, and at that particular on that particular day, there had been 189 incidents of drones being detected delivering contraband.
That's so far this year, is it?
Yes, just in that one particular prison.
So you're talking, we're more than halfway through the year, so it's nearly one a day, is it, or just slightly less than that?
Well, yeah, even on that particular day we visited, there had been a drone drop earlier that morning before we came in, and the prison governor was telling us on the Sunday before there'd been actually 3 different drone drops. And he said a possible reason for that was on the Saturday, the weather, I think, was very windy, wasn't favourable for drones to be dropping the contraband in. But I suppose it just goes to show, like, I suppose there was a day without these drugs and other contraband being brought in. So, remarkably, on one given day, there was 3 different detections.
So drugs being smuggled into prison is an old story, obviously. The traditional ways were probably still in operation as well, but the oldest way was people getting temporary release for a day and smuggling the drugs back in on their person, or somebody getting a visit from their mother or girlfriend, and they used to kiss the boyfriend and pass the drugs by mouth. So there was all these traditional ways, but obviously drones have absolutely taken over, and that's the last couple of years. I mean, the advantage of them is, of course, that you can do it without being caught, even if the drugs are seized. But it was a fascinating bit you had in your story that's on crimeworld.com about how they're colour coordinated, and obviously then everybody. So if they're marked black, that goes to this particular gang or this particular grouping.
Yeah, and that shows, I suppose, the level of organisation behind it. So in one, I suppose, seizure that was shown to us, I think there was at least 4 different colours.
Yeah.
So that's for 4 different
criminal organisations.
Criminal organisations within the jail.
Yeah.
And that means there'd be serious consequences for somebody that's not part of that organisation to take those drugs, maybe as they're dispersed among the prison yard.
Yeah.
And I suppose, as you know, as we've been covering it for years, anything to do with drugs like this at an organised level can lead to, and does lead to, an increase in violence, not just in prison but on the streets.
Yeah.
And that's what's been seen in all our prisons. There is an increase in violence because there's been an increase in drugs getting in, and that's particularly the case in Wheatfield as well. There was another video which we obtained on our visit, which showed a mass brawl and involved well over 20 prisoners, and where the belief of the senior prison staff believe that it's ultimately connected to a traveller feud. The spark of it, it's suspected of, was possibly drugs going missing and in one of these drone drops as well. So with the increase in this kind of activity, it has led to a sharp increase in violence and attacks.
Yeah.
Not only prisoner on prisoner, but there has been an increase on attacks on prison staff as well.
Yeah, because prisons, obviously, it can be violent places and there can be violence over very little, but a lot of what the violence that occurs is over drug debts, isn't it, within the prison system? So drugs are still given on credit within the system, and somebody owes 20 quid and they don't have, or they won't pay it. And that leads to this level of violence. Now, what sort of drugs are they seizing? Is it all and everything?
It is all and everything from cannabis to heroin, and everything in between. But also tablets are quite popular, and they always have been.
These are prescription medications.
Yes.
But basically like anti-anxiety medications or that sort of stuff.
If you take enough of them, you're kind of being a zombie, a zombie-like state, as we often see on the streets, even around here.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of very serious concern, but it's not the only way that the drugs are getting into the jails. Like throw-overs are still common.
So we actually had a couple of pictures over the years. We've got them a few times. So it's basically young lads get hired and they literally walk up to the wall and fling them over. I mean, it requires a bit of athleticism, to be honest.
It does. And I think there's been something like in Wheatfield alone, something close to 70 incidences of throw-overs recorded so far. But it's just to touch on a point you made earlier, when you were saying, that things are more technologically advanced with the drone use. There was a real suspicion that children, even infants, were being used to smuggle in contraband into the jail system, even sometimes in nappies.
Yeah.
So they've really tightened up their procedures now in what ID a child needs to show. It needs to be almost proven that
it's your son or daughter or whatever.
Yeah, and that's only a recent initiative, but there is a feeling that that's going to also help stem the flow of drugs into the prison.
Because there was two reasons that the kids were used, was the nappies, and that obviously the prison officers have to search people as they come in, but they're much less inclined to be searching a young child in that manner, in that invasive manner. And then also the buggies, sometimes they used to use them because there'd be metal on the buggies anyway.
Yes.
But obviously what they're getting at here, where they're saying, what is the term? Something like immediate children.
Yes.
Obviously people pretending to have a daughter, is it, or a son?
That certainly was a suspicion. And up until this, and it's only a few weeks ago it was introduced, someone could arrive at that prison and nobody knew who that, the child didn't require ID.
No.
So it didn't necessarily have to be anything to any kind of relation to the prisoner that was being visited. So that's expected to make great progress. And another initiative, I suppose, when they're really trying to tackle and clamp down on drugs within the jail, is the use of the prison confidential line. It's every year it's getting more and more calls. I think this year it's something like so far 150 phone calls to it, and that's mostly parents or partners of prisoners who are inside who have concerns about their loved one getting involved in drugs, whether it's at the higher or lower levels in the jail. And it's proven as an intelligence tool for the operational side of the prison staff. It's proven to be a very useful tool.
Because, of course, there is a level of organisation within the prison system, and there are some people that when they go into prison, they can make quite a lot of money, and they can direct drug gangs. They can have guys working for them, and obviously, violence is the tool in which they keep order. Do we know anything? Maybe not getting into names, but do we know people that have taken on that role in Wheatfield? Or
yes, and some of them would be among the most connected to some of the most senior and dangerous gangs that we cover, up to and including the family gang, the West Dublin family gang. Jamie Gagan, who we featured quite a bit recently, he would be suspected of having played within the wider system an organisational role in this kind of activity.
Yeah.
So I suppose the situation was so serious that there was always cooperation between the Gardaí and prison service, but they actually signed I think it's called a memorandum of understanding earlier this year, and it's really led to a kind of a much closer working relationship between the two agencies in relation to this problem.
Yeah, because traditionally sometimes the prison would discipline. They obviously have their own internal disciplinary systems, but it wouldn't necessarily go to the Gardaí. That's kind of the thing that they're...
Well, I think I believe the Gardaí would always be made aware of drug situations of any significance within the jails.
Or assaults,
But I think the ultimate aim of this plan is, with the sharing of intelligence at a high level, is the hope that these drones are going to ultimately, sooner rather than later, be stopped at source.
Yeah.
That they don't end up getting into the jails in the first place.
Because, of course, some people have come before the courts, but it does seem it is quite a skilled job, I suppose, flying a drone over a period of time.
Drone pilot, they're called,
Yeah, drone pilots. They're very advanced, but it's not totally easy to do it. So presumably there's somebody who specialises in doing it,
That's it. And the intelligence indicates that there's not too many people with that skill set.
Yeah.
In the, there's not dozens of them.
Yeah, that are willing to be involved in drug smuggling anyway,
Yeah.
So they have. So if you stand outside Wheatfield, which I've done myself, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, really, isn't it? In West Dublin, and there's a big wall, and I think if the throw-overs come at one wall in particular, but obviously for many years they've had these nets on top of the exercise yard. Are they working, and is there new plans to deal with the drones? Because there was a case, wasn't it, that the drones were carrying on fire, basically.
Yes.
It burned through the nets. Yeah.
And that would remain very common. So Mountjoy Prison was the first to introduce its kind of described as state of the art, but essentially it's metal nets, right? Which make it pretty much impossible for drones to get through. And I think since it was introduced in Mountjoy, the whole drone problem there has kind of almost went away.
Yeah.
So in Wheatfield, during the process of building these steel nets, mesh steel mesh in the exercise yards, I think they've spent €5 million on the project.
Right.
So I think that might be due to be completed next year.
Yeah, because what was happening was the drones, I don't know if the drones were set on fire, they were carrying something that went on fire, and they literally burned through the nets, and presumably the drone doesn't survive or necessarily survive it.
The drone can,
Can it?
Yeah, the drone can go and often does, just goes back.
Right, okay.
Goes back to where it was. But as part of this operation, though, between the guards and the prison service, in the last couple of months, there's been some notable successes. And I suppose to show you the level of
organisation,
there was a number of arrests made, and a very expensive drone was seized, along with a large amount of drugs. It was basically to be on its way into to the Wheatfield Prison complex. But in follow-up searches that were carried out by Gardaí targeting the gang behind it, I think it was happened in North County Wicklow actually, a functional machine gun was discovered the following day. So it shows you this is organised crime. It's not really the young lads who be throwing over the throwing stuff over the wall with great agility.
There is money to be made, particularly since most of those seizures have come true. So you went in to Wheatfield, did you?
Yes.
And what's it like when you go in? Like, how do you go in? You go in presumably through the big doors?
I know you go in through a visitor area. So,
visitor area. What do you go in through levels of security? And
we do. We're basically brought Ernie, our great colleague, and myself. We were brought on a tour by the prison governor and the governor who's the head of prison operations across the country.
Yeah.
So we were showed, the various videos, and we were brought around the exercise yards.
Yeah. And what's it like? Is it small?
I know it's quite a big complex.
Yeah.
And overcrowding, of course, is a massive problem there. But having been on a similar kind of tour at Clover Hill prison 2 years ago, it's not as bad there.
Yeah.
So we were brought in, shown a few cells. And one thing, Niall, you'd notice, again, overcrowding is a big problem, and the senior prison staff say that it's apart from it, hand in hand with the drugs problem, it's the main reason for this increase in violence.
Yeah.
But being shown the various kind of cells, there was a very stark contrast between the living conditions that there was no prisoners now in any of these cells when we were visiting, but they were being used.
Yeah.
There was a huge contrast between the living conditions for a prisoner in a single cell compared to what's described as doubling up.
Yeah.
And the prison governor was, he made a point about how when you're kind of forced to share a cell with somebody, it just increases a lot of it can cause a lot of tension to increase. The various little things. It can be snoring. It can be disputes over TV. It can be smoking. All these kind of things. And don't forget the toilet is there open in the corner of the room.
Yeah, so it's certainly unpleasant. I mean, that part of it, undoubtedly. I mean, like if you're a life sentence prisoner, they tend to give you your own cell, don't they? I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if that's a rule or it's just convention. But I mean, a lot of the guys, are they in bunk beds, is it? Or
there is bunk beds, and there's also mattresses on the floor, depending on the setup of the cell.
So you could have 3 people in a cell that at least
would be designed for one.
Really, yeah. And so when you go in, the cells are off. There's a kind of a guard station, is there? And then the cells are. Does it look like that? Is there a corridor and things like that?
We walked down so multiple corridors and through so many locked doors. There wasn't where we were. There wasn't a kind of a main reception area, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah, and So in terms of the seizures of drugs, obviously one thing that we have covered is the risk posed by opiate substitutes, I suppose. Nitrazine is I think one of them. And that led to there was a very serious medical issue in, I think it was Portlaoise last year, where I think it was 11 people got taken to hospital. That is something that they're deeply concerned about, isn't it?
Yes. Well, as one of the governors said during the tour, actually when we were observing one of the videos, and he's just pointed out there's no quality control, as we do know with illegal drugs. And they're actually very worried about a bad batch coming in, like what happened in Portlaoise.
Yeah.
And another concern in relation to all that, and really, unlike the UK where it's kind of taken a big hold in the prison system.
Yeah.
Spice, it's a cannabis opiate.
Yeah.
It hasn't really featured too much here, but the Governor Tracy, who was previously governor in Mountjoy.
This is Dave Tracy.
It is, yeah. He was saying, I was asking him, had he ever come across spice? And he said he came across suspected spice in Mountjoy prison when he was governor there. And it led to he was saying drugs in general can lead to very bizarre behaviour and bad behaviour. But in this instance, it led to 3 of the inmates ended up cutting out their own legs.
Yeah.
I was asking why. No reason was ever given. And he said it was just totally out of character for them. So
just a bit of psychosis, I suppose, brought on by the drugs. Now, obviously, the drugs are the main thing that comes in, but the phones remain something of real importance to the prisoners for obvious reasons, for a more benign reason that they want to keep in touch with family and friends, or a more sinister reason that they want to keep in touch with criminal associates or arrange criminal acts. So there's still a large number of these fob phones.
Tiny little phones there.
Yeah. I mean, the advantage of them is that they look like I suppose car fobs, really, that you use to turn on and off your alarm or your watch, and they're obviously very hard to detect.
Yeah, and when up to last week there was 421 of those little tiny phones seized in Wheatfield Prison alone.
Yeah,
which they're really small, really hard to detect.
Yeah,
and and they're obviously very popular with prisoners. But on top of that, there was something like almost 130 smartphones as well, which are obviously bigger seized.
Yeah. So I mean, they're like the fob phones. They have this chair, isn't it? The boss chair. I don't know if they have it in Wheatfield, but they have it in some of the prisons, where if you sit in it, it'll set off a metal detector alarm. And the small fob phones, because they're totally plastic, I don't think they were showing up. The weapons as well that are coming in, obviously they're of a huge concern, and they're being seized in general, I suppose, in the prisons as well, makeshift weapons.
Well, apart from that, we saw a lock knife, a big, serious blade on it that had come in on a drone that was intercepted a month earlier.
Yeah.
But there's been, in recent times, a major fear, and I think it's at all levels of the prison service, that an actual firearm loaded or could come into a closed prison, and it's the chaos that could cause within such a confined area. It's almost unthinkable.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the main reasons as well. There's plenty of reasons, but it's certainly one of the most significant factors in why there is this big joint operation now between the Irish Prison Service and the Gardaí.
Yeah, because of course prisons or guns have been smuggled into during the Troubles. It did happen, and obviously it allowed people to escape and cause total chaos. So the guards are involved, and if these seizures are made, are they leading to arrests and possible prosecutions?
Oh yes, in Wheatfield, up to the time of our visit, I think there had been 26 arrests in relation to various forms of attempting to get contraband into just that prison.
Yeah.
So you will be seeing now, I guess, in the coming months and further on, actual court cases. There has been a couple so far.
Yeah.
Mainly charges, but you'll be seeing plenty more. I get the feeling. Like the guard operation, is quite significant. It's been run out of Ronanstown Guard Station, which is a local guard station for Wheatfield, and also Clover Hill Prison is beside it, the remand prison. So which is also suffering from the same exact same difficulties. So they have an intelligence-led operation, and I think there was a particular focus on it in the last 2 months, but it was a significant amount of arrests, and also arrests of some significant people as well that we'll be covering.
That people that are significant players. So they feel that this is something that they can make improvements on. You're never going to get to a situation where nothing is ever smuggled into any prison. But they do believe that while the technology gets ahead of them, that they can catch up.
Oh, yes. They believe it's actually... one of the governors, Tony Harris, said it's a battle that he's confident, in fact, that they will win. He said something to the effect of that if I'm back in Wheatfield in 2 years' time, he would be hoping the story would be that there hadn't been a drone incursion into the jail for many months before it, but we'll have to see.
Well, and hopefully you're not back in Wheatfield in any other context other than visiting, Ken, but it is possible.
Yes, anything's possible.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that then when you're in either case in a couple of years.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks a million.